Andy, you have been around the block once or twice in this youth ministry world. I'm not saying you're old. I'm saying
experienced.
To use a quote from a conversation we had earlier, seasoned.
Seasoned, that's right.
Right?
That's a nice way to say it. A lot more gray hair here than there used to be.
You've seen this once or twice. Had there been some youth ministries? I'm not asking you to name names, but have there been places you've been before that you've seen it, you've kind of walked in the room and been like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Like,
oh man, what a terrible feeling.
Right.
What a terrible feeling, especially when we're for youth ministry, we're for youth ministers, and you walk in with whatever the situation is, and it's like, man, it's going to be hype, and you get there and you're like, oh no, this is not good.
And we're not saying this is the church that you walk in, right, and it's like 5 students, because those
small has nothing to do with it.
It's not a size thing.
That's right.
It's
not
totally.
A size thing.
Would you say that there are certain things that youth pastors could do that might be the cause?
That might, yes. Yes, it's a. You can kind of tell where we're going, right?
Yeah,
yes.
Right.
This is a post about a training piece about those things that we do that sometimes lead to the opposite of building a strong youth ministry, right?
Absolutely.
We might say that they're the 5 things that kill a youth ministry.
Yeah.
And certainly there are more. But yeah, I mean, as we've been around, and don't sell yourself short. You've got a lot of youth ministry experience to be as young as you are. I mean, done a lot, have been in a lot of great churches. There are things that we can do as youth workers. And I listen, I'm going to give youth workers the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say they're unintentional.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm going to say things that we do.
I don't look at any of these and say that, you woke up that morning and said, I want to kill my youth ministry today.
Yeah, so
no, if that's you.
That's right. That's a different issue.
That's a hard issue.
So these things are unintentional. And I think the first one that we can talk about, maybe the most unintentional, and that is not having any boundaries. It is a youth ministry killer to not have any boundaries, both personally, like both in our personal relationships and in our relationships with students, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, one of the big ways we see no boundaries come into play is not having that line that says this is me and family time and this is youth ministry time.
Absolutely.
And we know that youth ministry is not an 8 to 5 job, right? Things come up, especially fires that need to be put out, with students or whatnot.
Totally.
But we got to have clear boundaries with our families, or that is a burnout, a recipe for burnout. And burnout kills youth ministries. But the other thing we have to have boundaries for is our students. And I mean, it's easy. The first thing that kind of jumps to mind is like, opposite sex students, right? I have to have very clear boundaries between
very clear.
And opposite sex. And that is, of course. But I'm even just talking about relationships, right? With the guys in your small group, for me as a male, right? Like, I don't know that it's okay for me to be available for them 24/7.
Absolutely.
That sounds good in theory, right? But it begins to eat up my margin. And if I'm not healthy spiritually, if I'm not healthy in my family life, I'm not going to be a great youth pastor. So making sure those boundaries are very clear, it's a great way to avoid killing your youth ministry. But you've got some other ones, don't you?
Yeah, This one sounds a little quippy, especially with what we're going for here. And that's that I think another mistake that youth pastors make is thinking that they don't make mistakes. Right? And so let's think about youth ministry. You think about the youth pastor meme, the youth pastor stereotype. It's a young millennial out there. And, millennials, I get it. I'm with you. I'm there. And so we step up and we think, well, I don't make mistakes. I just work with difficult people, right? Like,
that's a great way to
hey, mom that's emailing me saying that I didn't communicate enough details.
Yeah.
I sent an email.
That one email was great.
I sent that one email about our retreat that's happening on Friday, and it's Thursday. And
what more do you need?
Yeah, right? Like, I sent an email. And so we can get really defensive. And so when you start to think, hey, I didn't make mistakes, you get defensive, which then leads to this rabbit trail of, well, that mom now doesn't trust you as much as she should. And when she doesn't trust you, now Tom's not going to show up to your youth group.
That's right.
He's not going to come to this event. And now this life-changing word that was going to be brought,
that's right.
he doesn't have access to because we weren't willing to admit that I made a mistake. A spirit of humility in student ministry goes so far. My mentor, huge. I've seen him have conversations before where I know he didn't make the mistake. Like, I know he didn't do it.
Yeah.
And he just takes it.
Yeah.
and you go, wow,
Yeah.
what a,
And I know
what
your
a
mentor.
leader,
He's a great
right?
guy.
Like, he's a stud. He's a stud.
Less people think it's me. It's not me. Like we said that, like, it sounded like I was maybe tooting my own horn there. No, I know your mentor. He's a great guy,
no,
and I could
absolutely.
totally see him doing that as well. So
Just take that spirit of humility so strong.
one thing, watch this transition. One thing your mentor doesn't do is he never built ministries around himself,
Absolutely.
which is our next thing that can kill your youth ministry. Some youth pastors, some youth workers, and again, I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt. They don't do this on purpose,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But they build the youth ministry around themselves. They are the center, right? The center is not God's word. The center is not worship, service, fellowship. It's me. I'm the center. And sometimes I think that happens with really charismatic personalities who that's their gifting, right? And they do a fantastic job of building community and building engagement and buy-in.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of things that happen if that's how we approach our youth ministry. One, what happens when we leave? Right?
Yeah.
What happens when God calls you to the next place? Yeah. If you're the center of that and you leave, it crumbles.
Absolutely.
The other thing is that we don't, different students relate to different people differently. I said the word different a lot in there. It's
It's a different approach.
It's a different approach. I naturally am drawn to a certain kind of student based on my personality, my experience, my giftings.
Yeah.
You know, but I may not relate as easily to maybe another type of student. If I share leadership, if I share the vision with multiple people, then I think there's a better chance that our students connect with the adults in charge of youth ministry. And you know, anytime we build anything around ourselves, all of a sudden you start to worry that pride and ego come in, even if you're not doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
But boy, Satan can get in our ear and convince us that it's about us.
Absolutely.
And so the best thing we can do is to share responsibilities, to build everything on those principles of youth ministry that we know are solid, and not build them around ourselves, because it's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. And as we're not building around ourselves, you've got to build your team to set things up, because when you build everything on yourself, sometimes you're going to have some weaknesses. And I know that one weakness that we see as a possible reason that you could be killing your ministry is a lack of perceived organization, right? And so maybe organization is not your strong suit, right? Like when it comes to being a type A personality, you are the type Z personality, right? Like as far away as you can be. And so you may look at this and be like, well, I don't need to be organized. I'm passionate.
Yeah, or I'm a great communicator.
Yeah,
I don't need to be organized.
Exactly. I don't need that. And so if you don't have an organizational system, people are going to see it. Eventually, everything's going to catch up. And that crumble is going to come while you're still there. And so finding an organizational system that works for you. I know that when I first came on staff here, I went to Andy and was like, what checklist system do you use? Because it's different for different people. And so find that system that works for you. And if you are lacking in organization, I think that leads to our last point, which is failure to communicate.
Yeah, it really does. Those two do connect.
Because if you're not organized, you don't have time to set up those emails and those correspondence. And so poor communication leaves your people in the dark. And when they're in the dark, you're not leading anyone. You're just taking a walk. Right?
It leads to frustration too. It really does. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, because we all want to be on the same page, we all want to know what's going on, and the worst thing is getting to an event or showing up somewhere and you have an expectation that's wrong because you weren't communicated clearly. So it makes your volunteers upset with you. It makes parents upset with you.
Yeah.
It's a ministry killer.
Absolutely. And so with these 5 things, we don't think, once again, that they are intentional decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one says, you know what I want to be? I want to have poor communication with my families.
For it.
I want to make sure that everyone in the ministry understands that I'm amazing.
That's right. This is all about me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nobody does that.
So with these things in mind, we believe that they are fixable.
Yeah, that's right.
And all we need to do is just take a quick look at ourselves and be like, hey, we all make mistakes. I have been in ministry for years, and I know that I have failed to set up boundaries before. I've
absolutely
lacked in organization at times, and so it's okay. We admit it, and we move on. We just want to make clear that here at YN360, we believe in you and what you do in ministry. And so we're here to help you. We're here to have that conversation, and we understand that you wear so many hats. And if organization isn't one of your strong suits, if communication is your strong suit, we have a huge team here that would love to help you and equip you to do that and crush your hassles for you. So please feel free to reach out to us. We love coming alongside you. You are the hero of our story, and we want to make sure that you feel ready to do what God has called you to do. So we want to thank you for joining us. Andy, thanks for chatting.
Always a pleasure, Robbie.
We look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you so much.